And we've got 1 minute till we start. This presentation is eSIM best practices for iPhone and iPad, setting the gold standard in mobile security for 2025 and beyond. Lucky for you guys, I'm a storyteller. So while you've got this minute, I was at a previous conference which no longer exists, so I won't even name names. But there was Pitbull at one point who was trying to get a group of IT admins excited and ready for their post-hours after party, and he's like, "Are you guys ready to party?" And it was a very resounding no from this group. So, but I do know, looking at this audience, that we're gonna have a very engaged session. We are looking forward to your questions. Any comments that you have, we will leave some time toward the end of the session for Q&A. So please feel free. You'll be able to wave me down. My name is Andrea Glick. I'll be your session host for today. So that way we could get your questions answered at the end of the session. So be on the lookout for that. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and welcome to the stage that we've got Ant and Jamie joining us from One Global. Just also as a secondary note here, is that you can also find them upstairs in the expo hall. They are located in booth 205. So again, if you don't get your questions answered here, you can always find them at the booth. So please give a round of applause to Jamie and Ant.
Good afternoon, everyone. The after lunch slot, everyone getting sleepy. Hopefully I won't send you to sleep. I'm Jamie, this is Ant. I'm one of the solutions. Oh, not yet. Oh. I head up the solution specialist team at One Global, and we look at how you integrate things like eSIM into MDM platforms such as Jamf Pro, and that's what we're here today to talk to you about, as well as why eSIM in the first place. And
yep. Oh, the music stopped.
I like the music.
Singing along there.
Yeah.
I'm Prokop. Nice to meet you all. Just a quick note. Don't leave today or tomorrow if you've got any burning questions about eSIMs. While you've got the people in this room and the people in our booth, there is a whole lot of experience all about eSIMs. If you've got any questions, if we don't answer them right now, come and see us. We'll know the answer. Thanks.
Cool. So I thought I started off this presentation talking about SIM and eSIM security because it's often overlooked. We've seen some cyber attacks over the course of the last few months. In the UK, we've seen Jaguar Land Rover, we've seen Marks and Spencer's, we've seen, I like Asahi Beer. Yep. They've been taken out. I don't know what impact that's going to have on me, but we'll find out soon. And if you look at one of the attacks, it was actually due to SIM swapping. So this was Marks and Spencer's, a UK grocer, where I'm led to believe from the initial reports, they haven't fully published everything, but a third-party company was a victim of a SIM swap. They got access to two-factor authentication and took out an entire grocery organization and clothes operation for a major UK retailer. And it was, I think it was about 2 months, wasn't it, before they actually got back to some sense of normality. And for the first week, they had to take cash payments only, which I don't know about you guys, but I've not carried cash for quite a few years now. So when we move to the world of eSIM, you end up with a load of additional functionality that you can start to leverage on things like iPhones and iPads to just locking things down in a way we've never been able to do before. Because of the nature of a physical SIM, you can take it out, put it in another device. And I know that I talk about this all the time, but I still haven't put a PIN number on my physical SIM. So I do still keep a physical SIM for testing and device testing, but I'm not suggesting anybody does, but you could take the SIM card out of my phone and get access to my two-factor authentication. And anybody else here, if you've got a physical SIM in your device, do you have a PIN number on it? Very few individuals, very few organizations do, and it's not enforceable. So what we're going to do today, talk about One Global as an intro, cover some of the Apple hardware changes and some of the cool things you can do, eSIM in 2025, and some iOS 26 specific updates. Also going to cover why we believe eSIM and MDM through Jamf Pro is really important. We'll come on to why Jamf Pro is one of the only MDMs you can do this for from end to end, fully automated. And then we will look at some use cases, some demo videos, so you don't have to listen to me talk the whole time. especially after lunch. Ant's going to run over the eSIM API, and then we're going to introduce you to a trial, which you guys can sign up for. Completely zero obligation. Sign up for it, register your organization. We'll send you the access to 10 eSIMs, 50 gig, 80 countries, 80 plus countries, and our lovely Antoni's services for helping you set up the API, which takes about 20 minutes. So why are we up here as One Global talking about eSIM, and who are we, what do we do? Well, we are an MVNO. I like to use the example of Ryan Reynolds and Mint Mobile, because I'm assured in America you can't turn on a TV or social media without seeing adverts from Ryan Reynolds and Mint Mobile. You can think of us like Mint Mobile, but on steroids. We're not just reselling a carrier's eSIM. This is our own service. We are using the likes of, for example, in the US, T-Mobile, AT&T. In Europe, Netherlands, we use KPN as an example. And we use all the best carriers around the world. And we're also not tied to a single carrier. As an organization, we offer services in multiple countries, and we bill fully legally compliant, tax compliant in each of the countries. Currently, we've got 10 MVNOs around the world. We still have roaming coverage with over 600 partners in over 190 countries around the world. The countries ones always amuses me, because if you look at MVNOs and carriers, they'll often talk about how many countries they cover. And I saw one the other day saying that they covered over 250. Right. Now, I asked my friend ChatGPT on that and assured me that was not possible. So, yeah. But basically, we pretty much have coverage anywhere where there's mobile coverage for a carrier. I'm not going to run through the list of countries because I'll probably forget it, even though I've been doing this for 5 years. But it's 6 in Europe, and then we've got Australia, Brazil, Hong Kong.
Germany, Netherlands.
No, I wasn't about the international ones. That's fine. That's fine. So, what else do we do? Well, as an organization, we've been around since about 2006, officially as an MVNO since 2009. We're one of those organizations that's been around for many, many, many years that you've possibly even have connectivity in a device you have for something called Bootstrap. You may even be using our services in the consumer space, because we do things like, if anybody's heard of NordVPN, they have Sailing. It's an eSIM product that they have that integrates with NordVPN. That's actually us supplying that service behind the scenes. Revolut in Europe, that's also us. So Revolut have an eSIM. If you guys have heard of Revolut, you can install an eSIM, that's us. So some of you may be using our services through Bootstrap or consumer services already. But we're also, and this is where the kind of expertise in eSIM comes in and where we've developed this capability, we're a leader in the eSIM space. So without getting too kind of deep and dark into networks, because we're not here to talk about that, there's a thing called entitlement servers. That's what tells you can do tethering and roaming and all kinds of other services, as well as RSP servers. That's remote SIM provisioning servers for eSIM services. And we supply those for multiple carriers around the world. We're actually recognized, I think it was the last month or two, by Forrester as a leader in that area, which is amazing for a company that didn't start in the physical SIM or entitlement server space. So moving on to what we're here to talk about, eSIM. So eSIM isn't new. I think technically it was 2015, 2016, the standards were kind of released. But what we've seen is a very slow adoption of the services. But there's some very clear reasons as to why it's great. It's easy to set up. There's a security story, which we're going to cover in a minute. You've got remote management, which again, we'll cover in a minute. You've got multiple SIM options, where you can have perhaps high availability. I know that airlines, as an example, if they can't get connected, it's really bad. So if you can have a backup carrier on an alternative network where a pilot can go click, click, I've got another carrier, and get connectivity to be able to update their electronic flight bags, that's really important. I've got some friends that were pilots, and they've said that they've been sat on runways before where they can't take off because one iPad's updated and the other one hasn't, so they have to run back in, tether to somebody, get it updated before you can actually take the plane off. Which, if you can just install an eSIM remotely as a secondary option, well, you've got high availability. So there's all kinds of use cases as well. Typically what we see is corporately owned devices. So, I've gone too far forwards, Ant, in my head at least. Right, sorry. So what we've done here is we've built a full integration with Jamf Pro. What does that look like? Well, it's completely hands-off. We built this with the belief that end users should be able to have eSIMs in an enterprise space, and it should be able to be done by IT admin, completely zero touch. I don't want to have to train Ant to scan a QR code and hit all the positives. And I did a call this morning with a customer, and we put some clear instructions in place, and 2 of the users on the demo call for a POC hit the negatives. And you can't account for these things. So it should be super easy, and that's what we've done here. We've built an integration with Jamf Pro, which enables completely hands-off, zero-touch implementation of eSIM. So why is that important in the first place? Well, what we're seeing is lots of hardware now coming out as eSIM only. In the US market, you've already been used to, I think it was the iPhone 14?
14, yeah.
14 was the first one that did eSIM only in the US. Still the only market to do that. But obviously with the iPhone 17, we now have more markets that are eSIM only. Great benefit. I wanted to get one myself because the iPhone 17, the eSIM only one had a increased battery. And by about 10%, I think, as well.
About 10% extra using the real estate in the phone.
Yeah.
And the space.
Yeah, and it's a more sealed device. There's a security aspect and everything else. And iPads from March 25 are now eSIM only. So this is huge because we have to do something about it. Or organizations have to do something about it. And the legacy problem was that a lot of eSIM activations that we see from most carriers across the world are based upon a one-to-one relationship with the end user and the carrier, not doing things in bulk. Apple were the first to come to market en masse. Technically, it was Google, but it wasn't really widely adopted. But Apple, since 2018, every single device from the iPhone XS onwards has been able to support eSIM. And it's something that we call dual SIM, dual standby on iPhone. This isn't the same with an iPad, and I wasn't aware of that until I started mucking around with the cellular iPad. So what does dual SIM, dual standby mean? It means we can have 2 SIMs active at the same time in one device. So if I phone Antoni on his work phone, it phones, rings, it works as normal, and the same thing if I phone him on his business line. It's the same device, it's 2 active SIMs. The reason they call it dual SIM, dual standby is because they're both ready to go, but when one's in action, you can't actually receive a call on the second line. You could get geeky and start talking about you can on Wi-Fi, but that's another story. You can also do some cool stuff as well with high availability on an iPhone, where you can set up auto data switching between 2 active SIMs on the device. So if you've got 2 carriers on the device, it means you have, well, it will switch between the better available one. The use cases are still the same as Apple launched, or at their launch. The use cases are still exactly the same, which are just use an eSIM in a device as opposed to a physical one. It's the bring your own device, perhaps using personal and work SIM in the same device, or company-owned, personally enabled, where you might put your personal SIM in your work device. And then the last one, there was a stat by the GSMA couple of weeks ago where they said 35% of the global market will be using travel eSIMs outside of their primary provider for international travel, for cost-effective usage and also more choice of operators. The interesting stuff for us, when we start looking at iOS 26 and what's happening and the changes, Apple have started to make, going back to that use case there, too far, going back to the secondary SIM use case, Apple have started to be quite intuitive with what happens when an end user installs a SIM. If any of you want to try this, by the way, a really simple way, if you've got an eSIM in your device at the moment, don't do it now, obviously, because we're doing our thing. But if you go to betterroaming.com, that's one global sister company that's a consumer one, on the homepage, you can click on the QR code and install an eSIM. And you can go through this process flow, if you're running iOS 26, to see what this looks like. But what they've done is made it intuitive. So first step, you install the SIM. Second step, normal activation. But then it starts asking you questions. Is this a travel SIM? Is this for domestic use? Is this data only for travel use? And you go through the menus and options, and what Apple have done is added a level of automation. This is only for iPhone, but it's iOS 26 on the iPhone. What that automation does is when I install the eSIM, and if I set it up so that it's for international travel only, that eSIM, as soon as I leave my country and turn it on one of the plan lanes, plane lands,
Plane
even.
lands.
When the plane lands, the device will automatically prompt the end user to say, hey, do you want to turn on your data travel and turn off your roaming usage on your other SIM? And it's an automatic prompt to turn on that SIM. I probably should know what happens when you go back, but I only tested it when I came over on Friday, so I don't know. I'll let you know as an update afterwards.
So one of the things that we see constantly, and this is with Jamf Pro, you get 0-day support on any new Apple MDM framework capabilities that we've seen with iOS 26, the ability to start to control functions on the phone via ICC ID. And that's basically referring to the eSIM profile. So if you've got a work profile and a home profile on your phone, so the user's using both on their phone, you can begin to control what traffic flows over which eSIM. So we're going to see more of this as we progress, I think, in later releases, where it's looked at, especially for BYOD, that it's going to become important that only work traffic flows over the corporate eSIM and the personal traffic flows over the personal eSIM. So we can get this diversification of data across the eSIMs. That's to protect and secure the corporate data, because that's essentially what the company wants to do, is protect its data. As Jamie mentioned before, there's lots of problems with attacks on individuals looking to get their corporate credentials and get onto the systems once they're stolen, and that's how major hacks can occur. So that's one of the great things about Apple, that they're constantly talking to us and other carriers about how to make this better for business purposes. And if you look at the spread of capabilities that we've got, starting with at the top there, you can begin to control different aspects of the eSIM, all the way through to modifying cellular data, being able to modify the eSIM itself. So you don't want your users deleting the corporate eSIM, right? So why have delete eSIM available in the menu? So with Jamf Pro, you can control these aspects. How many calls to help desk, do you see where, oh, I've accidentally deleted the corporate eSIM, can you get it back for me? And that takes time and effort through the help desk and through the carrier to reconstitute that eSIM on the device. So you can stop all that happening by controlling it at source and just helping the user not make bad decisions. eSIM transfers to other devices. This has recently come in on iOS 18. So the quick transfer capability where you can get a new phone and transfer the eSIM across from the old phone to the new phone. Again, we want to be able to control that from a corporate perspective, and Apple have given us the ability to block those transfers. We can switch it on Jamf Pro and allow it if we know that user is getting a transfer, but we don't want them removing the corporate eSIM from a corporate device and switching it to a different device that they own. So we've got the control mechanisms there. And one of the other problems we had with eSIM was a lot of security setups. If they've put the pin in wrong too many times, you want to wipe the device to protect the device. And originally, that used to delete the eSIM at the same time as the wipe. Now you can control that and preserve eSIM on wipe where it is being erased by a security protocol on the pin, or that the user has decided to wipe the device. So those are great controls for being able to manage and maintain services with eSIM.
So, I started off earlier on by talking about security in eSIM and the fact that it's often overlooked. When we start looking at activation methods, you've got, most organizations will look at something called QR code activation. So you scan a QR code and off you go. We'll come on to that in a second. There's actually the manual entry thing. I don't think I've ever done that. which is normally the code at the bottom of the QR code you would scan. There's also options for something called a universal link, where you can email somebody a link, they can click on it, and it will take you that way. There's eSIMs applications that you can have from your carrier. There's also something called carrier activation. It's probably one of the more common ones that you guys would have seen if you're doing eSIM activations. I'm not personally a fan of that. We can do that as an organization. It's something called, behind the scenes, it's called ALS, Apple Lookup Service. Basically what happens is there's something in our architecture called like an SMDP Plus server. What happens is you publish the EID. So the EID is the unique SIM identifier of any device. We publish that in our eSIM server. That eSIM server then talks to Apple services, which is the ALS, Apple Lookup Service. And basically, when that device logs on, Apple pushes that out to that device. So the reason I'm not a fan of that is because the end user can abandon it. So they can go cancel, and you end up with problems with end user intervention. You also have an issue in that you're reliant on the carrier doing it. So if you send your carrier a list of EIDs, is it done today? Is it done tomorrow? Is it an instant process? Does it take a week? And you won't know until it gets pushed out to that device. If you're buying new devices, it can work quite well, but for existing devices, the end user could get a notification at any point in time that they have to then act upon. But the one I want to talk about is obviously mobile device activation device management in enrolled devices. So QR codes, why don't I like them? What we're seeing is, and don't scan this QR code, by the way, if anybody's tempted. This is actually taking you to Jamf Trust's simulated phishing site. So you can scan it if you want, and you'll just see it comes up and it says, what does it say?
Just warning.
Warning, yeah, something along those lines. And if you're using Jamf Trust, the admin will get a notification saying somebody's just clicked a link. And this is one of the problems that we're seeing. We're working a lot with financial institutions who are massively warning people against QR codes and saying, look, because it's an easy way to get it through a firewall. Email some QR codes to an organization, get people to scan them, and some people are scanning them without really knowing where they're going. And that is a challenge. So if most of the world is, from a carrier perspective, is sending QR codes, we still do, by the way, it's just that there's a better way to do it. What are the alternatives? So I covered this a minute ago about the carrier activation. Because the carrier activation is an alternative way to do it. You buy a device, your carrier can publish the EID to their eSIM servers. You can do it in life, purchase them new. As I said, we support that as an organization. I believe T-Mo support it, AT&T in the US, EE in the UK. It's a relatively widely adopted service. But you don't have any control of it as an organization, and it's normally that one-to-one process. So what we've done is we've spoken to a number of customers. We had one last year on stage with us on the commercial State of the Union. And these were the problems they were talking about. They were talking about it's a nightmare getting the right SIM to the right person. We were talking to an organization yesterday who said that they tried to roll out, I think it was 4,000 devices, and QR codes were going onto they had to do 4,000 devices with QR codes. Then they tried to do the eSIM push. That became a challenge. And it's the accuracy, it's the training, there was one organization we spoke to last year who had a huge issue with, they would give out QR codes in a new device to an end user, and they'd go, I don't want to use the managed device, I'm going to use my own. Put the SIM card on their own device. 2 years later, we'll come back in and go, here's your unopened box. So you've got an asset issue that you've got an open box that you paid for 2 years ago. The second problem, this was a German company, and they were an education organization who students are sending details to their teachers, lecturers on a regular basis. So now, if you guys are aware, in Germany, they're quite tight on GDPR and regulation around data processing and everything else. So now you've got personal details on an unmanaged device. There's all kinds of issues with not managing this centrally. So what we've done is created this integration with Jamf Pro. The whole underlying principle is zero touch, not just for the end user, but also the admin. So this is what we've called the gold standard. Why is it the gold standard? Well, if you think about the things we've kind of just touched upon in terms of the risk for end users and the risk for an organization and QR code issues and support, how do we, in 2025, look at the whole kind of device lifecycle? So onboarding, how do we do that nice and cleanly? What do we do about looking after them in life so they don't scan dodgy QR codes like the one I just put up on the screen a minute ago? And what do we do at the end of the life to make sure that that SIM card is erased from the device, to make sure that throughout the whole device life cycle it's covered? Now, when we talk about the gold standard, and this is something I stand by because I've not seen anything else that really challenges this. If you take devices that are registered in ABM or a supervised device, you put with automated device enrollment, you roll out Jamf Trust with Jamf Pro, you roll out the eSIMs through that process as well, you now have a pretty bulletproof solution for end users. So, as I said at the beginning, we've partnered with Jamf to bring this to life. So what we're going to do now, I'm going to hand over to Antoni, who's going to run you through the process as to how we actually do this with smart device groups. And then we're going to show you some demo videos to kind of bring it to life. They are in real time, the demo videos, by the way. They've not been sped up or slowed down. I don't know why you'd slow them down. But they're all in real time so that we can have a little look and see what the end user experience looked like. Because for me, I once was in a few years ago, I did a rollout with a customer, and I said, yeah, I'll come out for the rollout day for 2,000 iPhones and iPads. I wish I hadn't have gone. I was being shouted at. It was an absolute nightmare. And this, for me, has always been the kind of goal, the ambition, the gold standard is trying to get to this level, and finally, we're there.
Yeah, and one of the things is that you don't want any friction with the end user on the device. They're going to enroll a corporate device into Jamf Pro, and you want an eSIM delivery at the same time with no friction at all. So how do we do that? Apple Business Manager, really, with Apple, we're getting two enrollment methods. It's either through Apple Business Manager, through corporate-owned devices, and then account-driven user enrollment for BYOD. So they're the two standards that we're seeing. So you've got your device in Apple Business Manager. It's going to enroll into Jamf Pro. And as it does that, it's going to get the corporate eSIM deployed at the same time. So what does that look like from a process flow? Well, we've got our new device. It's enrolled in ABM. It's going to point it directly at Jamf Pro. And so if we're using an identity provider, first thing the user sees when they've gone through a couple of startup screens is the familiar IDP logon for their corporate credentials. So nothing new for them to do. All they have to remember is their corporate email address and their corporate password. Jamie. He forgets it all the time. So what's going to happen when that device enrolls is it's going to drop into a smart group, right? So we've predefined some criteria that we want to identify either from the user information that's going into the Jamf inventory or from the device information that's being pulled out the device into Jamf. And we can use any of the criteria we want to create the smart group. So for instance, Jamie works in the London office. So his address in Entra, which is the IDP we're using here, is going to show that into Jamf that his office is London. So dead easy. I'll create a smart group that will deliver UK numbers to UK users using London as the criteria in the smart group, which will then drop Jamie's device into that smart group. And the clever thing now is when that smart group is added to, a webhook will fire. So what we've done is really 20 minutes work with the administrator just to set them up, get the webhook set up, which will call into our One Global backend infrastructure and say, hey, there's an eSIM that needs to be delivered to this device. We'll pull the EID out of Jamf and we'll associate it with a profile in the SMDP Plus download server. So there's been no administration done other than that initial setup. The user's not doing anything on the device, and basically the eSIM will be delivered along with their applications, their configurations, and all those eSIM restrictions that we set earlier so that they can't do anything crazy later on with the device. There you go.
Thanks, Sam. And one of the things there that just expanding on what Ant said is you can do it manually. What we're demonstrating today is the automated process. But if you want to go, I'm going to move all iPhones to one global and install the eSIMs remotely, you could just say all iPhones, smart device group, done.
All iPads, all
iPads,
phones,
yeah.
all devices.
By country, yeah, or by user groups or whatever, which is what the retailer that we came on stage with last week was doing. So this actually is just a quick demonstration of our dashboard where we pulled all the smart device groups. So we've got the 10 countries that we operate in, where we bill in local currency. I am going to do it. UK, Germany, France, Netherlands, Spain, Poland, US, Australia, Hong Kong, Brazil. There we go. I think that was 10. It was 10, wasn't it? Yeah. So what we've done there is we've created the 10 smart device groups so that, again, it's just part of our demo platform. Say, hey, look, I'm a Brazilian user. I log in with Brazilian credentials. I get put in the smart device group for Brazil. I get my Brazilian number. I'm a US user. Guess what? I get my US number. So what we're going to show you now is a couple of videos. On the left-hand side, you've got the iPad. And on the right-hand side, we've got an iPhone. What we're going to demonstrate here, all that's happened with these devices is they've been connected to Wi-Fi already. We've done the first stage of the rollout where it says enroll in automated device enrollment. It belongs to this organization. And we're at the stage where we have to enter the Entra credentials. So as part of this demo, what we also wanted to show was the eSIM restrictions. So I'll point out the eSIM restrictions as we go. But what you'll see, that device on the right-hand side, obviously we're enrolling, it's the iPhone. The one on the right-hand side, we've also, as part of what we would class as the gold standard in device security, we're also deploying Jamf Trust to that device, so you'll see that as part of the demo. So what you'll see on screen right now, and as I said, I did say that this is in real time. So what you can see is my sausage fingers typing the password on the one on the right-hand side, which is why it took so long. And this is, as I said, the real-time process. So this is standard. If you're using automated device enrollment today, this is everything you're doing at the moment. So within this, I think there's like 135, 140 lines of information that is uploaded as part of a device onboarding into Jamf Pro. Things like serial number, things like device, software version, and the more important one for us is the EID. And you'll see in a second the iPad screen will change. It will go to green. That means obviously it's started to get its payload to say, right, can we say payload with Apple? It doesn't yet, it will work. So it will start to get its payload to say, right, what you'll see here, I'm going to go into settings really quickly. I'm going to go into cellular, and you can see that eSIM's activating. The key thing with this is, as a user, my only interaction with the device was to get my username and password right at the beginning. You don't have to do that. You can just throw the SIM onto an already enabled device. But this is what I think is quite a cool way to demonstrate this, which was completely zero touch. The iPhone, you'll see the same thing again, where the device is activating. It's going through the process. And you'll see there within a few seconds, it's activated again. Zero touch for the end user. What we'll also do here is we'll just show you the eSIM restrictions. So as we go through, I'll just wait for it to scroll through. This was me taking the video and scrolling through. I should remember what it looked like. And if you go into VPN and device management, we go into restrictions. And what you'll see here is eSIM restrictions that we've enabled. So there's no outbound transfer. So you can't transfer the SIM to an unmanaged device. You can't delete it. You can't add an eSIM. You can't make changes to the apps that use the plan. You basically have a fully locked down device. Great application in retail, great application in healthcare, and this works on iPad as well. All of those restrictions are there. We've also deployed Jamf Trust, and we've said, actually, we don't want to use Jamf Trust, so we don't want to use TikTok, despite, as I'm sure you can see, Ant's love of TikTok. I'm sure he has a channel. You'll find it somewhere. It's not something that we wanted to use as part of this demo. So you can see it's locked down. Jamf Trust has stopped that end user reaching TikTok. So within a matter of, that was probably a minute and a half, I believe, for the video, an end user has logged into a device, had all the applications deployed, has had an eSIM deployed with completely zero touch. But obviously, we talked about kind of the beginning. Arguably, using the device and visiting TikTok, we can't do that on the One Global SIM now because the device has been locked down with trust. The final part of the jigsaw is what do we do at the end? So when we want to offboard a user, I'm just going to make sure that video on the right-hand side is playing. It is. When we want to offboard a user, this is the Jamf dashboard. So we're going to go into that device. I'm going to go into wipe, and you'll see there's an option to actually delete cellular plans. I'm going to hit delete cellular plans, and I'm going to wipe that device. Now, we've got a device that has been onboarded, it's managed in life, and at its end-of-life device cycle, or it's stolen, or it's lost, or whatever it may be, or an employee's left, we've now wiped that eSIM. So that's no longer a risk to us as a business. So it takes about, there you go, so you can see it takes probably about 5 seconds from when you've hit the command for it to actually be deployed onto the device. So that's the kind of like beginning, middle, and the end. A couple of interesting things you can do now with, I think, was it iOS 17 with the eSIM preserve?
Yes.
I always get the terminology wrong. What's it called?
Yeah, preserves the eSIM on arrays.
There we go, that one. So what that means is, if I'm an end user, let's say there was a use case that was given earlier on today in a meeting, actually, where end users are occasionally told to wipe devices, but they're out in the field. So if they wipe the device out in the field and they need to reactivate it, what do? Well, what they've said is historically, they've said to end users, look, right, we're going to support you on the phone, right, okay, yeah, you're X amount of 100 miles from the office, fine. Right, go into your device, wipe arrays. When it comes up with eSIM, oh, you've already deleted the eSIM? Oh, right. Well, now you've got a user with a wiped device that needs to go and find some Wi-Fi from, I don't know, a friendly person, or a McDonald's, or whatever your chosen fast food chain that does good Wi-Fi is, perhaps Starbucks, get connected and reactivate that device. Well, what you can actually do from a support perspective now, and this is an example of the eSIM controls that are coming to organizations as Apple continue to develop this, is you're able to preserve that eSIM on arrays. So if the end user cannot get it wrong, well, I'm sure they probably can, but from an MVNO and eSIM perspective, it's now preserved. So we have this whole kind of picture of zero-touch installation. It's deployed within a minute or so. We have enhanced security, and that's only going to get better. We were quite surprised to see the iOS 26 ICC ID locking.
Yeah, it's great.
So that you can, if you think about it in a healthcare scenario where you don't want people iMessaging, well, you can now lock it down so that end users can't send iMessage on particular corporate ICC IDs, or SIM numbers, whatever you want to call them. So there's some great use cases there as well, or perhaps even in retail. Works for automated device enrollment, like from scratch. It works in life, it works on iPad. Works on any iPad from, I think it was 2018, they introduced the Pro with eSIM, which is the first one. And any iPhone from the 10S or later will support this in live through ADU, whatever. And then, of course, you've got the whole different applications, high availability, and the other things that you might want to do. So look, we think this is pretty cool. We started at the beginning by saying that eSIM and eSIM security is often overlooked. Hopefully, we've highlighted some of those things through the risks of QR code deployment. The support element, have they managed to scan the right code? Is it installed? There's a whole bunch of challenges which, as a result of doing this through One Global and Jamf Pro, you can now automatically deploy SIMs to any user anywhere in the world at any point in time. That was the last point, actually, which is we can do this anywhere in the world. So if you're, John, if it was yourself and you were in the US today and you, I don't know, let's say there was a party tonight, hypothetically, of course, and you lost your iPhone, you were like, tomorrow you pop into the local Apple store. I've been there, it's quite good. We bought some stuff. In fact, we actually have an Apple iPad as part of a competition later. If anybody's been by the booth, please come and see us because you can be entered into that. And John decided that he needed to be up and running straight away. Well, with One Global, he could actually get his device, put the eSIM on it, even though it's a UK eSIM and he's in the US, and can be up and running to get his boarding pass for British Airways or whatever on the way home when he's away and done. With some of our competitors, what you'll find, and we've seen this, they'll have to be able to activate an eSIM device. You have to be in country with some of our competitors. So If you're a US organization and you were John, you were in the UK and he's got his US number, he's got to wait till he gets back to the US to get his number up and running. So there's some really cool things that you can do. This is, I'm going to show you a QR code in a second. It's not a dodgy one, I promise. It's a perfectly legit QR code that will take you to our website to be able to register for the thing. But I did think I put the link at the bottom just in case nobody trusts me, which is fair enough. The trial is 10 SIMs, 30 days, 80 plus countries. Play with it. Deploy it to some iPads, deploy it to some iPhones, because we stand by this. It's a pretty cool, slick solution, and I think once you see it in action, it's very cool. Now, if you trust me, you can use that one as well. Just enter your details for the organization, and we'll help you set it up as well. So that's us pretty much done.
Yep, that's good.
Thanks, Ant. I guess it's over to a Q&A.
Yep. So please feel free to raise your hand, and I'll come over to you if you have any questions. This is a very pregnant pause.
I think it was just because it was a very thorough presentation.
I believe it was.
I can't believe we've covered everything, though. There must be some questions.
So how do you determine, how does the back end, how do you connect to, if it's Verizon, T-Mobile, AT&T, to activate a SIM?
Fair question. We are a carrier in our own right, so we are an MVNO. So we actually partner with, we use AT&T and T-Mo in the US. So we have our own SIMs, our own activation. We bill you directly. It's our service. And that's the same for all the countries that we operate in. So we actually have our own eSIM servers, SMDP Plus servers. We don't need Verizon. In fact, a lot of carriers come to us to actually host their eSIM services. So it's all our service. We service it, maintain it. We have 6 POPs around the world, US, UK, Europe, as in Amsterdam. Hope that answers the question.
Yeah, and the important thing here is that there's only a handful of companies worldwide that are authorized by the GSMA to run eSIM servers or SMDP Plus servers. So that allows us to build that integration in the back end. The front end looks really simple, and it is with Jamf Pro, but we've had to do some clever stuff as that in real time, that device is demanding an eSIM, and we've got to put that eSIM in the SMDP Plus and get it downloaded within 60 seconds. So by owning the full infrastructure piece, we can do all that clever things. So if you're going to ask your carrier about it, please do, but they may not be able to replicate what we can do. Thank you.
A follow-up then. So look, for example, our area, certain services could be 5 feet away that don't work or do work. How would you then handle, we could be theoretically AT&T, and then 2 miles over there, there's no signal whatsoever. So how would you handle a situation like that where you, based on the area, depends on what's getting activated?
I think I understand the question. So just to clarify, you're asking what happens with our SIMs in terms of coverage if there's no coverage. Is that pretty much the question? Yeah,
we have a lot of different dead spaces, yes.
Yeah. So probably need an NDA for no, we don't. But if you come and see us later, we'll explain in a little bit more detail. But off the bat, what I can say is that we have AT&T and T-Mo active on all of our SIMs all of the time in the US. So if there's no T-Mo coverage, you log on to AT&T or vice versa. So that's kind of active all the time on our SIMs.
You might have mentioned it, but I'm curious about dual SIM and if you're able to push down and manage the same way you can for what you described here with eSIM. So if I have a technician that's in the field and he can fail over from T-Mobile to AT&T, I think I saw that. That was great. But what in the event that they would need to have dual SIM support, what would that look like?
Yeah, so dual SIMs, so in an iPhone?
Yeah.
Yeah, in an iPhone, there's a bunch of settings. When you activate the second SIM, and as I said, if you guys want to do a test yourself and have a play, if you go to Better Roaming, you can actually just play around. There's no cost. It will activate a SIM with no cost. You can delete it afterwards. It's just quite an easy way to demonstrate how that works. So what you can do in that scenario is you can activate allow data switching, and I think that's what it's called.
No, carry on.
So when you install the second SIM, it will ask you a bunch more questions about things you can do. And one of them is, do you want to allow auto data switching? So either you can change manually which data's going to be used, or you can set it to do it automatically. I actually have a One Global in my obviously I've got One Global SIM in my phone. be rude not to, really, wouldn't it? But I also have a second carrier SIM in my phone because we do lots of testing, and I always leave it on active. So basically, if one SIM can't get coverage or whatever on data, or it's not great, perhaps it's like, I don't know, poor 4G or whatever, it will actually automatically flip over to the other one. That's just a standard feature on Apple dual SIM devices. So it's pretty cool.
And you can have up to 8 or 9 or 10 profiles on an iPhone, but only with dual SIM, dual standby, 2 can be active at any one time. But you could have, 8 different eSIMs on your device and just flick between them. Is that crazy, Jamie?
An example is so there's, I know you guys, I don't know if I'm allowed to mention names, but Josh Jagfield, who was our old partner manager from Jamf, he actually has 2 SIMs in his device, a better roaming SIM and a Verizon SIM. And he says he's never that coverage. It's an amazing way to do it. As a consumer, as a business, makes a huge difference as well. So I think there was someone over there as well.
We have one last question
Okay.
here, and all other questions, if we can hold them till after the session, please. I know this is a great topic.
Hi there. So you were mentioning about granularity up to like the country level, but if we're wanting to do targeted deployments to particular users or anything like that, are you able to do that?
I didn't quite hear, did you?
I didn't quite hear.
Sorry.
You were mentioning targeted deployments towards countries. Can you do anything more specific, for example, particular users or anything like that?
So you mean, can you activate specific users in specific countries with a specific country SIM?
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. But you can either do it manually, or you can do it by the end user credentials. You can do it, there's several ways you could do that, but yeah, absolutely. And that's exactly some of the retail use cases we have, where there are specific users in specific countries. So we can give them any one of those countries, any one of those numbers. Yeah, you could technically have multiple SIMs from multiple countries if you wanted.
Awesome. And with that, we will conclude this session. I'd like to thank Jamie and Ant for their time today. If you guys can give them a big round of applause, they will be here for the next few minutes so they can answer some additional questions off to the sideline.
Am I allowed to say one more thing?
Oh, yes.
One more thing. So just as a follow-up to this, there's actually Wayne Treadwell.
Yep.
Is doing a session tomorrow morning, and that's again on eSIM. It's again about carrier activation. So it's a slightly different flavor to what we've done here, but if you want to kind of round off an experience on eSIM, he's got a session tomorrow as well. Please do come and see us on the booth, and we can do some live demos for you. Cheers.